Hello and welcome to my LinkedIn and YouTube Live. I'm Sharon Amesu. I'm the founder of SA Consulting, and this is a series of lives that I will be delivering, which is designed really to support leaders who are leading and navigating and communicating change in your organizations. So this is a new platform that I'm using entirely. At the moment, I'm not able to see if there is any specific message coming through, etc. So I'm hoping that if you are watching this live, you are able to communicate to me and let me know that you are able to watch this live and it's coming through clearly. If that is the case, please let me know in the chat. And I'll be looking on, I'm actually broadcasting on LinkedIn and also on YouTube is what I'm assured. And so let's just hope that that's the case. But I'm going to keep on communicating and broadcasting out there in the hope that you are able to watch this live or you are able to watch this on the replay. So what is this particular live about? What is it that I wanted to focus on? And indeed, sort of the series of lives that we're going to be sharing. So one of the things that I have noticed in my work hello, marvelous. There is someone who is watching. Thank you, Sam. You can see and you can hear me. That's amazing. Thank you for letting me know. That's been communicated. Thank you so much. And please share this live as we go. I'd really appreciate interaction, etc. It's great to have you on here, Sam. So one of the reasons why I'm doing this series of lives is because of that I've been having with many leaders, organizational leaders, about what is unfolding in their workplaces, among their teams, and the challenges that they are having. And there are two principal challenges that are emerging from the conversations that I'm having with leaders. One is that there is just a constant, relentless pace of change that they are having to navigate, that it is relentless, that there is always change that they are having to confront and address and navigate. And the second thing is that's attendant to that. It's how they communicate to their teams that there is change happening and that they need to be able to respond to those changes. And what I often see when I do sort of sounding listening circles within organizations, or where there is a staff survey or there is a pulse survey, etc., employee feedback, the theme that tends to come back is that there is lots of change happening and there is no communication about why it's happening. It's just that we are told that this is what's going to take place and here is what we have to do in response to that. And so often the expectation that the perception that people have is, here is what we are being told to do and we have to do it. Whether or not we have any question, whether or not we have any curiosity, whether or not we want to bring any of our own reflections about how it might be done differently, none of that is welcomed. This is the change of policy, this is the change of direction, this is the evolution of the strategy, and this is the direction of travel, without any question or any reflection. And this is becoming, I can see, increasingly problematic. And it appears to me that that speaks to something of why the recent LinkedIn skills report, the 2026 skills report, and I recommend having a look at that. If you Google it, you'll be able to find it. And the annual skills report points to what are the key skills that are in demand in the workplace. What are they? What are the priorities that organizations are having to bring focus to in order to ensure performance and productivity and innovation and creativity? As one would expect, artificial intelligence, the ability to engage with AI, is one of those key skills. And if that's something that resonates with you, please feel free to share either live now if you're watching or in the chat subsequent to this on the replay. But what it highlights, of course, is that the understanding of artificial intelligence, the impact that it will have on the workplace, on our workflows, on our ways of operating, etc., and our thinking, even all of that is something that we need to be able to grab hold of, grasp, and understand in order to be effective in the workplace, right? But it also points to something else, which is really significant. I really do recommend having a look at that skills report, because what it says is actually it's also becoming increasingly important for organizations to focus on communication skills and being human-centric in our approach in the workplace. Because with all of the disruption, which I'll be touching on shortly, there are still people who are at the end of that, those processes, those policies, the transformation. People are centered in that. And so it's so important for us to understand that having good communication skills, the ability to engage with those people, the ability to help them to understand where we're going and why we're going there and the direction of travel, the importance of being able to do that is now not simply a soft skill, which is a nice to have. It's not simply a convenience that will enhance us and our presentation as a leader. Actually, in order for us to take people along with us, in order for us to be able to influence both internal and external stakeholders, to do that effectively in an age of significant change and transformation that by no means will be slowing, in order for us to do that, we need to capitalize, harness, develop, sharpen our skills of communication, executive communication, leadership communication, team communication, etc. And so I wanted just to share in this and subsequent lives, really, what are some of the things that we need to reflect on when we are communicating change? Because it's a challenge that I'm hearing in organizations. Just this very week, I was speaking to an organizational leader who was reflecting exactly that there's lots of things happening and people are feeling discombobulated and disoriented and just uncertain and very much in the dark about what's happening. And leaders are feeling that they are communicating and there is a disconnect. There's even a dissonance, really, between the perceptions of what is being experienced, what people are saying should be experienced. So let's just have a look at some of the big changes that are taking place. Let's remind ourselves of what they are. And please feel free to share in the chat the extent to which these resonate with you. You yourself are witnessing them, and so on. The obvious ones are around technology and AI shifts. And we know that, we talk about the industrial age, the agricultural age, and the shifts that take place in an age which completely disrupt everything that we have known up until that point. Right? And that is what we are seeing now in the age of AI. And the impact and the import of AI disruption is such that it's outsized to anything that we have really experienced in any previous generation and at such scale. And so we have automation, we have new digital tools, we've got the continuous reshaping of roles, workflows, and the required skills that are forcing our organizations to adapt again and again. We have evolving ways of working. I was listening to a really interesting conversation actually about the shift that many organizations are having to face in relation to the world of work as it was during lockdown and under COVID, remember that? And how, in fact, everyone was having to find a way of working from home by and large, except for, those exceptions, emergency services and so on. But people found a way of operating and had to find a way of operating from home. And now we're seeing that organizations, over time are saying, so we need to address that model, whether we're going back into the workplace 5 days a week, as it were, or what is the hybrid way of working, and that change, those ways of working, collaborating, working with each other. How are we doing that? What needs to shift? So there's the evolving ways of working, which is impacting people. We also have, and this cannot be overstated, it is the deep uncertainty and change that we are witnessing geopolitically, and therefore by extension economically in our economic business landscape. We're seeing inflation, we're seeing supply chain shocks. We've got already concerns with the war on it in Iran, real concerns around energy pricing and gas pricing and so on. Regulatory changes are impacting us. There's all sorts of tensions regarding the geopolitical landscape that's impacting our structures, our ways of working with partners, etc. And then there's also significantly the change that organizations are experiencing in employee expectations. I often describe myself as the generation of because I said so. If you can resonate with that, please let me know in the chat. I was a generation of because I said so. What do I mean by that? Well, if my parents told me to do something, I did it. And if there was ever a retort of any description, namely if I were to tentatively pose why, the response would be, over to you, because I said so. And there was something of the age, certainly, that I grew up in, where there was that sort of understanding, because I said so. That is the reason. That was a complete explanation for something being done, because I said so. That was sufficient rationale. That was deference to the adults in the room, as it were. But now we have changing expectations. There's greater autonomy, agency that employees have in the workplace. And so that by extension leads to the because I said so being insufficient as explanation for decisions that are being made impacting their lives. Okay. So then, where are we seeing these shifts impacting the workplace itself? So we know what's going on in the external environment, as it were. We know what's going on in the employee mindset. But this then impacts our strategy and our direction of travel, shifts in our market, products, customers, business models, etc. We've got shifts in our structure and roles, reorganization, new reporting lines. We've got centralizing of teams. We've got decentralizing of teams. We've got new systems coming in, AI tools, digitization of workflows, etc. We're seeing shifts, and we're having to see shifts in culture and behavior, people and workforce decisions. So hiring freezes, headcount reductions, location changes, new skills and capability builds are being required. So what is the impact of this? Well, essentially where people are experiencing change, where people are experiencing uncertainty, we know that that has an impact on the mindset and the experience of the people in our workplace. And that is very much a instinctive reaction that people have to that, an instinctive response that people have to change and uncertainty. And we are very much living right in the heart of those times. There's there's an acronym that hails from the military, which you may be familiar with. It's known as VUCA, that these are volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous times. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous times. If you've heard of that VUCA, please, that acronym, please let me know in the chat, and whether or not that's something that you are experiencing in your workplace. And what happens in this? I think I want to share um, this acronym with you, and it hails from the world of neuroscience. And I think it's a useful way of us understanding and appreciating what's happening when we are experiencing change and when the people in our organization are experiencing change. Because I believe the more we understand what is happening for people, the better prepared we will be to react and respond appropriately. And that's at the heart of communicating change effectively and having a brain-based approach to how we lead through, navigate through, and communicate change effectively. And so we have this beautiful acronym by someone called Dr. David Rock, and it's called SCARF. And essentially what he says is that in a sort of a social interaction space where there are others in that space, brilliant. Thanks, Sam. Vuka, very much for your all. Change is constant. Absolutely. And this acronym, which I feel is really useful, SCARF, it speaks to what is happening when people are experiencing change in a sort of a social setting, a social environment. And he points to these 5 elements that are either in threat or in a sense of reward, one of those two. And when people are experiencing change and navigating change, this is what is happening for them. This is where the sort of the antennae is being raised, and therefore we need to be mindful as leaders of where it's being raised and how we can assuage and how we can ameliorate those concerns. And so he says, first of all, status. Secondly, certainty. Next is autonomy. The next is relatedness. And the final one is fairness. SCARF. So when change is happening, people have a sense of discombobulation in a social context. Discombobulation and disorientation in relation to those 5 areas. Status, what's going to happen in relation to my status and my standing. There is this sense of certainty. What are the knowns and the unknowns for me? My autonomy, what agency will I have? Because having personal agency, a sense of empowerment to be self-determining is fundamental to us as human beings, right? Agency, self-determination, relatedness. How does this impact my relationship to other people? And finally, does this feel just? Fairness. Does the decision that's being made, is what's happening, does it feel fair to me? Am I being treated fairly? Is this a just outcome? So being mindful of what is happening, I think that's just a useful way of framing what is happening in that situation. And therefore, I want to share with you my 3-part framework before we wrap up for this live. And I would very much welcome if you watch this on the replay, you sharing what is happening in your organization and how you are communicating change, what changes you're experiencing, etc. I want to share this with you as a framework. It's called the ACE framework for communicating change. The A is for align the story. The C is for communicate with clarity and care. And the E is for embed through consistency. All right. So this is particularly relevant for me as I reflect back on my career. For 16 years, I was a criminal barrister. And for our sort of US friends, that is a lawyer by way of an equivalent, perhaps. But I was an American barrister. I was an American barrister? I was a criminal barrister. I was a criminal barrister in the UK. And if ever there were an area of practice in law where you were in a constant state of uncertainty and the unknown, In other words, you would not necessarily know what would be coming next out of a witness's mouth. You would not necessarily know what would be coming next from your own client. You would not know what was going to be coming next from an evidential perspective from your opponent, whether you're prosecuting or defending. The reality is you're in a constant state of change. And therefore, the need to be able to communicate change effectively in a way which could be understood, absorbed, and accepted was critical, absolutely critical to that role. The very notion of simply saying to a person who would be directly impacted by your decision that I'm doing this because I said so was just a complete illusion. Where people are impacted by the decision that you are making, it behoves us to be clear about what we are doing, why we are doing that, with a clear rationale and a proposed end game. To simply assert without real reflection, consideration, and the extent to which we can co-design and collaboration, to simply assert that this is what we are going to do is by no means the way of communicating change. And I recently read a post where there was a reflection from a senior leader who was wanting to make a shift in their organization. They were frustrated that they were wanting to change the model of working and shift that from hybrid into full 5 days in the office, and the perennial challenge of many organizational leaders. And the advice was given: just tell them that this is what's going to happen, and they stay or they go. It's that simple. That's not how you deal with people. Not in an age where you have changing habits, in a mindset where people have greater agency and autonomy. And just to be dismissive of people's concerns. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't necessarily go in the direction of travel in that way. It's that you don't simply go, this is how we're doing it. And if you don't like it, then you can leave. That's just not the way of dealing with people and treating people. And so understanding that where you are dealing and managing with people, just this sense of, unilateral decision making without any sense of inclusion or communication or collaboration is unhelpful in the modern workplace. So what do? We align our story. We get clear ourselves on the case for change. Do you know why you are changing? Do you know why you are taking the decision that you are making? Have you reasoned it out? Are you changing for changing's sake? Or are you doing something that you believe fundamentally will make a difference and take your organization forward? Because even if it's going to be painful, even if it's going to be disruptive and a difficult pill to swallow, even if that's the case, all right, no one's saying that those things won't happen. Those things happen in organizations because you can't please everyone all of the time. But when you are clear as to why you are doing it, then you are able to communicate that. You're able to convey, aren't you, what success looks like from your perspective. And you're also able to convey what you are concerned will unfold or occur if you don't take this course of action. And so ensuring that there is alignment internally with your story, but also alignment externally, i.e., who are the senior leaders in your organization who you will have to communicate and will have to become ambassadors and the vanguard of the message. So alignment between you and them. What is the story? Why is this the story? And who is it that needs to be aligned? Ensuring that there is the same narrative and you do not have mixed, confusing messages, because what does that do? That undermines all of those elements that we identified earlier in that David Rock scarf model. So aligning the story, communicating with clarity and communicating with care. So there's a brilliant book by someone called Kim Scott. Highly recommend it. It's called Radical Candor, and it's linked, it's adjacent to what I'm saying here. And essentially, in that book, she talks about being clear is to be kind, and she means it in the context of feedback. But I adopt it here in the context of communicating change. To be clear to people is to be kind to them, to be opaque, to lack transparency, to be cloak and dagger is actually to be unkind to people in change processes. All right. And so communicating with clarity and care, being empathetic, appreciating what you feel like as a leader when you are experiencing change and you don't know what's happening, and using that awareness to inform and shape how you then support colleagues who are navigating that change, who don't have the aerial perspective on the situation that you have. So explaining the change in simple language, include the impact, the timelines, what this will mean for different groups, and acknowledging. It's so important that as leaders, we don't see the acknowledgement of people's feelings and experiences as a weakness of leadership, that it's evidence of our lack of grittiness. It's so important. What was the name of the book? Thank you, LinkedIn user. I don't see your name, so sorry I can't respond. But it's Radical Candor by someone called Kim Scott. Kim Scott. Radical Candor. She's also written another book called Radical Respect. I highly recommend her resources because they really provide a very useful model for how we can deliver feedback and engage in those more difficult conversations, those performance conversations, etc., in a way which is much more about challenging directly, which is a framework, and caring deeply. So Radical Candor, I very much recommend that to you, and every leader really should have a read of that book. And then finally, embed through consistency. Repeat the message across key challenges. Don't simply assume that because you've said it once, people will have heard the message and therefore they should know. Actually, at a time of change, over communication of a message in a very clear way, repeatedly, is so important. Don't assume that people know. Don't assume that they should know. Break it down as a leader. Ensure that the story sticks, that it doesn't just land once, all right? And link that change. It's really important that the change that you are introducing is linked to daily decisions, behaviors, recognition, and so that people see and can feel in a really tangible way that this is how we're doing things here now. And it's not simply the vision that you shared on a PowerPoint slide deck one day on the intranet. That actually you communicate to your people repeatedly, that you have those conversations with all of those managers, line managers in particular, and then you map back, here are the behaviors that evidence, that manifest that change in this organization. So the ACE model, align your story. Andy, hello. And I'm not sure why I can't see your name, Andy. How bizarre. Well, hi, Andy. It's great to have you on. I don't know why I can't see you. Maybe there's something in the system. But thank you so much for joining. Yes, it's Radical Candor. So aligning your story, ensuring that it is aligned internally in yourself. Do you understand why this change is going ahead and why it's important, the consequence of failure? Aligning it externally, so ensuring that those who you are leading in your senior leadership team and the next level down, that there is a collective message and understanding about why this is important. And they, as ambassadors and as the vanguards, they take that same message and not have this approach, well, this is what's being said up in the boardroom, but wink, wink, I don't agree. That's a mixed message which will cause confusion. There needs to be alignment. And we see that, don't we? I'll say this in parentheses. We see this, don't we? Where we have, leaks in government, where you have one person who will say, well, I had a dissenting view to that. How is that a unity of approach And what does that cause? What is the ripple effect of the perception of division when change is taking place? When people are going through uncertainty, they need their leaders to stand in solidarity with a unified message. So, alignment of the story, communicating with clarity and care. To be clear is to be kind and to care for others, having empathy in your approach and being mindful that people are impacted by the decisions that you are making. And we can't be flippant and blase about how that impacts people. And then embed consistently. Keep the message repeated, keep it on repeat so that people understand the story, the through line throughout. I hope you found that useful. If you have, please let me know in the chat, whether watching on the live or watching on the replay. And I look forward to catching up with you next week. If you are in your organization now and you are thinking, we are navigating change and we want to be able to do that effectively. We want to be able to lead through change in a way which provides clarity, which brings care, which is empathetic. We want our leaders to be better skilled at communicating to our people and engaging them and ensuring, to the extent that it is possible with the wit and the will that is in our hands, that we bring people on board with this. If there is something that you need support within your organization, please DM me and I'll be happy to chat with you. Thanks very much and bye for now.